What's your favorite pronoun? I understand that's a very unusual question to ask, and if you're like 90% of English speakers, you probably don't even have a favorite pronoun. More or less, you use all of the pronouns in given circumstances, depending on what you want to express, what you want to refer to. They all have their use cases, more or less, right? Then there are people who might actually have a favorite pronoun. I'm thinking if you're a very narcissistic person, potentially your favorite pronoun is I, right? Because you like talking about yourself. If you're a communist, potentially your favorite pronoun is us, we, our. Now, let me then introduce you to my personal favorite pronoun, which is not I, you, he, she, we, you, they. No, my favorite pronoun indeed is it. The humble little it. It appears in a lot of cases. We use it a lot, but most of the time it's a little bit overlooked in my opinion. And so today I am here to prove that actually not only subjectively to me, but objectively it is the best pronoun in the English language. Now, to illustrate that point, we have to look at some example sentences, and particularly useful I find a sentence like this one right here. It is difficult to drive in snowy weather. Now, my first question to you is, in the sentence, what does it mean? If you have paid a little bit attention during your school teachers' really unnecessary explanation of grammar rules, you will have probably identified that it is in fact the subject of the sentence. What is a subject? Well, most of the time we think of the subject as the doer, the main character of our sentence. It's in most sentences, or at least in the default sentences in the English language, the main actor of the sentence, the center of attention. But still, what does it mean? Just because it is the subject, we still don't know what it means. If we rearrange the sentence a little bit, we will see that in fact we can also convey the same meaning, the same idea, by saying driving in snowy weather is difficult. So we have replaced our it by the phrase driving in snowy weather, which arguably is the actual content of the sentence. Driving in snowy weather is difficult. Now, is difficult is what we consider the predicate. Usually the predicate is a verb, so the thing that the subject does. In this situation, we don't have a verb, we have an adjective, so it's the thing that the subject is. And we know that it is difficult. That's our predicate. And our subject now is driving in snowy weather. We have just promoted this content thing at the end of our sentence to subject position. If we again want to get to our original position, we can just take the content chunk at the beginning, our subject right now, driving in snowy weather, and put it at the end of the sentence. We get is difficult to drive in snowy weather. Now, if you are a little bit familiar with English, if you have a little bit of an intuition for the language, you will notice that this is weird. And the reason it is weird, I can explain it to you, is because there's a subject missing. So what do as good, proper English speakers? We throw a subject in there, and because we don't know what else to add to the sentence, because pretty much we have all the meaning that we need, we just use it in order to have it there as a subject. It's more or less a placeholder, you could say. Now, why do we do this in English? Well, there is a kind of rule in English sentences which says every normal English sentence has to have a subject. Now, the problem with that is it's not true for every language. There are a lot of languages in the world who actually allow to skip the subject entirely in some sentences. Let's take Japanese for an example. If you have a friend over and you're serving them a hot cup of tea, you might hand it to them and you say atsui desu. Atsui desu translates into is hot. There is no subject there, and it is pretty much clear that the subject in this sentence would be the tea. The tea is hot, obviously. In English, at least in standard English, you would not get away with just writing is hot. You would have to at least say the tea is hot or it is hot. It in this situation stands for the tea. Okay, now let's get back to our original sentence. It is difficult to drive in snowy weather. If you're really clever, you might say, well, it still means driving in snowy weather. We just took driving in snowy weather, put it at the end of the sentence, and then we have our it in subject position. Still, it means driving in snowy weather. Now that's where you're kind of wrong. It doesn't mean anything, and I can prove it. Let's look at another sentence that uses it very similarly to this one. It is raining. Again, we have our subject it, and then we have our predicate. This time it's a verb, in fact. Yeah, we're using the present progressive or the present continuous, depending on which part of the world you come from or who your English teacher was, if English is your second language. And that's pretty much it. Subject, verb, perfect English sentence, it's raining. Now let me ask you, what does it mean? It doesn't really mean anything in this sentence. If you want to argue that it means the weather, well, let's look at this sentence. The weather is raining. I'm sorry, but nobody speaks English like that. What else could we replace it with in this situation? The rain. The rain is raining. This works in other languages. Again, I'm taking Japanese as an example. Japanese would say ame ga futteiru. So we're saying the rain is falling, but that's actually a cool sentence and perfectly fine in English as well. Problem is, it's not it is falling, the rain is falling, we're saying it is raining. So what does it mean? In fact, again, we have all the content and the meaning that we need in our predicate is raining. That is all the semantic, we say in linguistics. That's all the semantic meaning we need for the sentence. However, because languages bind us to very arbitrary and sometimes random grammatical rules, English requires us to have a subject in the sentence because we can't just skip it. We're not speaking Japanese, we're speaking English. And so what we do as clever English speakers, when we don't have a subject, but we also don't have additional meaning to give the sentence, we say it. It is raining. And this it has absolutely no meaning. It doesn't carry any semantic information, we say. It only carries grammatical information. And the grammatical information is just to tell you that, in fact, this is a proper English sentence. Nothing more, because it has a subject. Every English declarative sentence, so every sentence that's not a question, an imperative, or some sort of shortened version, some sort of ellipsis. So every full declarative sentence in English needs a subject. And so it is the only pronoun that works like this. It is hollow, but in its hollowness it is beautifully flexible, and it is literally the crutch that we use in English in order to fill the role of the subject when there is nothing to be done with the subject, when the subject is not needed. It literally means subject, and it has no other meaning in those cases. On top of that, it can do what every other pronoun can do. It can just replace a proper subject with meaning, as we have seen in the tea is hot. It is hot. So it is really the most versatile of pronouns because it plays the role of a normal pronoun, and on top of that, it is our default subject when we don't know what else to say for a subject.